What's going on, guys? Graham, Jason Matthews back here with a rare second episode of WWE Network and Chill for the day. Earlier on today, we talked about Prime Target TakeOver Toronto before TakeOver Toronto tonight. Right now, we're discussing the latest episode of Miz and Mrs. from this past Tuesday, Season 1, Episode 17. I accidentally said Episode 16 earlier on in the last episode of Network and Chill earlier on today. This is Season 1, Episode 17, called Heal No More. So, the episode is basically what it, what the title suggests, with The Miz slowly but surely turning from a heel to a babyface. And at the start of this episode, Miz talks about getting a lot of Twitter love recently, largely from being a father now and just being more likable, but he just knows, he just has a knack for getting people to hate him, so it feels weird for him to get all this love out of nowhere. Meanwhile, they get back to the house, Miz and Maurice. He gets the groceries wrong. It's because he's not listening to Maurice. Maurice gives him this laundry list of groceries, and he's just not listening. He just tunes her out until she says something about getting naked, and then he listens immediately. That's like every guy's problem ever. Like, they don't really have bad hearing. Well, I guess he does, because he ends up getting his hearing checked a little later on in the episode. It's just that it's called selective hearing. You only really hear what you want to hear, and that's exactly what the case is with The Miz. And, his hearing issues with his wife, Maurice. So Miz doesn't listen to Maurice at all while they're trying to feed Monroe. He just completely tunes her out. Right after that, we see Miz and his friend Ryan Cabrera go to a man's salon. I guess he cuts his own hair. That's what he admits here. But that's where he talks about, Miz talks about admitting that it's weird for him to be cheered because he's been a heel for so long now. And of course, he was a babyface for a cup of coffee back in 2012, 2013. But it wasn't like a true face run because people didn't really cheer him as loudly as they are now. So anyway, Miz is backstage at a WWE show and is confronted by Titus O'Neil, who comes up to him with a to-do list. A to-do list of all these things that he has to do, call this person, do this, do X, Y, and Z. And Miz calls Maurice asking her, why did you give Titus the to-do list to give to me? It's because earlier on in the episode, and I knew exactly where this was going as soon as Titus walked up to Miz, it's because Miz said to Maurice earlier on in the episode, and again, every guy can sympathize, can relate to Miz here, but this is a pretty dumb excuse, where Miz says, oh, I don't listen to you because your voice is too, it's too high. And guys are automatically just designed to tune out high-pitched voices, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And they try to do this thing where, I stand with Mike, hashtag I stand with Maurice on Twitter. I didn't see the results, but I can only imagine that Maurice won this thing by a landslide, because I'm a guy and I completely agree with Maurice here. So, getting back to what I was originally saying, what happens is Maurice sends Titus O'Neil to give Miz the to-do list because he has a deeper voice. And then Miz is like, this is completely stupid. But what's dumb is what Miz said in the first place about Maurice having a high-pitched voice and that being the reason why he doesn't listen to her. So anyway, they get back home. Miz and Maurice start telling each other what annoys them about each other, and they just start bickering back and forth, blah, 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 blah. Miz, back at a WWE show, meets up with Rob Schamberger backstage, the famous WWE painter, artist, great guy. Met him at WrestleMania weekend this past year. And, Rob wants to paint Miz and his family for a picture, and Miz doesn't know if he wants to do it because he feels like it would endear him to the audience, and it's getting to the point now where people see him as a family man, and that's why people are cheering him. And he said, he just flat out admits it, I love being hated, but there's a weird part of me that also kind of likes being cheered too. So anyway, Maurice takes Miz to a hearing instrument specialist to find out if there really is something wrong with his hearing, and there is. They listen to the doctor, and they do one of those things where you have to kind of raise your hand up in the air if you hear anything, like you hear a beep in your ear, and then he just starts raising his hand out of just because he feels like, he just starts making a pattern out of it, as opposed to raising his hand whenever he hears something. He's doing it because he's trying to fool the doctor. And the doctor tells him, listen, your hearing is really not that great. It's average hearing at best. It's not awesome. No pun intended. You really should work on your hearing because there actually is a problem here. We see Miz and Maurice meeting fans at Royal Rumble Access. For one second, I thought it was WrestleMania Access, which is also where they filmed clips for the show because I was there and I saw Miz and Maurice doing their VIP thing. And I saw, the cameras and stuff. So hopefully they showed it at some point. Hopefully they showed that at some point. You might just see yours truly at the WrestleMania Access in April, which is pretty cool. Interacting with, that's where I actually met Miz's dad, George Mizan, and even Marjo. I even fucking met Marjo at WrestleMania Access, which was hilarious. Anyway, so Maryse ends up meeting up with one of her friends. I forgot what her name was. The friend, being manipulative, says, listen, you should use his lack of hearing to your advantage. Say that you said something that you didn't actually say, or pretend, say something, not, knowing what, well knowing that he's not going to listen to it, knowing that Miz won't hear you, and use that to your advantage. So I don't know if she actually ever said, hey, I want to make it snow in the front yard for Monroe because she's never going to see snow because we live in Texas. I don't think she actually ever said that. She's going to pretend that she said that, Miz knowing that he probably didn't listen because he doesn't listen to Maryse. So Miz comes home, finds out that there's snow on the ground in their front yard because she made it snow, because it's Texas, obviously it's not going to naturally snow there. And Miz makes the most of it. He's happy to see the snow. He slips on it to begin with, but then they go sledding with Monroe. They have a fun time before they start throwing snowballs at each other in Texas, which is pretty cool. Miz realizes, okay, I got to start paying attention more. I got to work on that. And after the Royal Rumble, they don't show any clips of him and Shane becoming the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, which I thought was weird. But he's finally a full-fledged good guy coming out of the Royal Rumble, and he's getting cheered. And he admits that he has selective hearing, but, he can hear all these people cheering for him on the SmackDown after the pay-per-view. And, he's pretty happy to hear the crowd cheering for him, which is kind of cool. So anyway, they get back to the house, Miz and Maryse. Maryse says that she has a finder thing now because Miz was complaining about Maryse always losing, car keys and losing the remote. So they buy a finder thing where I guess you can press a button to find where things are. I don't know exactly how that works. But she also buys a whistle for the Miz, where if he's not listening to her, she has full reign to blow this whistle until he does listen to her. Again, a little extreme, but that's because Miz's hearing sucks, and this is really the only way they can work on improving it. At the end of the episode, they host a tea party with Monroe, and Maryse also admits that fans, she kind of figured that they would eventually come around to liking him for who he is, because although he can be a likable person, he can always find a button to push to make people hate him, which is exactly what he does at the end of this episode when he shoves a cupcake into Maryse's face. And then she does the same thing to him, and then Monroe starts crying, which I thought was funny. So anyway, that is Season 1, Episode 17 of Miz and Mrs. He'll Know More is the name of the episode. Check it out on USA Network. I will be back next week with my next review of Season 1, Episode 18 of Miz and Mrs. So be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more reviews of enjoyable episodes and enjoyable editions of Miz and Mrs. such as this one. And until next time, guys, I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.